Hey, Robert, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Laurie.
Oh my God, I'm so pleased to see you again. Listen, for those who don't know you, why don't you tell everybody who you are and what you're all about?
Sure. I'm somewhat of a serial entrepreneur. I've started a few different businesses during my time. Some successful, some not. The largest of which is a global partner marketing agency called Acceleration Partners that I started and I ran for about 13, 14 years. I've since stepped out operationally of that and onto the board. So I spend my time still working with that organization, working as a board advisor to other growth stage companies, and writing some books and speaking to audiences about growing capacity and all things around how do we create better leaders and better companies.
Yeah, I love that. Well, why do you do what you do? Because you're a guy who could probably do anything, right? You're at a point in your life where you've had, business and professional success, and you've done really well personally. I know that you're a family man, so you could do anything in this world, and yet you're still trying to fix work, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I mean, I, look, I my sort of overarching purpose is to share ideas that help people and organizations grow. I think there are a lot of things out there. Some of them aren't, I've in doing some of the assessments that I've done about my strengths and other people describing things that look, you synthesized this in a way that made it useful to us or that I could sort of act on it or otherwise. So I try to like curate and test things. And if something in my lab seems to work better than what's on the market, then I inherently kind of want to share that with people. So
Yeah.
that seems to be the driving motivation. Particularly passionate around leadership because I think there's a real either virtuous or vicious circle there where I've given up on the government is going to solve our problems. I think but great leaders really just seem to have a magnifying effect in the same way that bad leaders have a diminishing effect. And I think some of those people could be sides of the same coin, depending on what sort of exposure that they had.
As you were talking about really having a passion for leadership, I mean, I have a passion for puppies and kittens, so I'm just built different, But you've got this passion for leadership. Why is that? Like what draws you to that?
Yeah, I think it's like probably a little bit of my own experience in knowing like how well I did when I had great leaders and
Mm,
mentors and people that were helping me, improve and get better. And just part of building an organization, I think, was seeing that the difference that
mm,
a good leader and good leadership makes and how that would, I just, a lot of my capacity building framework is really around this whole, like we can help people improve holistically.
mhm.
I don't think that, and in fact, the book I'm researching now that'll come out in 2 years that hopefully made some progress on this problem. But I just think that parenting is so broken today, and it's
Mhm.
producing really bad outcomes. And I don't understand why people don't look at it through this leadership lens. Like to me, it's like the ultimate form of leadership. And if we did half the stuff at work that we did it as parents, like we'd be sitting in HR's office with our jobs threatened, these
Yeah,
days. And
that's
so I
yeah,
mean, they're even the ultimate test of seeing like what is that impact. Like we're holistic.
yeah,
I find it hard to believe that someone's a real micromanager at home and with their kids and isn't at work, or that they're
yeah.
exhausted at home and they have energy at work, or they're great at budgeting at work and they're not at home. Like it's kind of all one and the same.
So tell me a little bit about your new book. What's it called and what's it all about?
Yeah, so it's called Rethinking 2 Weeks Notice, Changing the Way Employers Leave Companies for the Better. And this was one of those things that sort of bugged me as I built my organization. We were trying to build a great culture. There were a lot of things we did really well, kind of trying to have an open, psychologically safe environment. But when it came to leaving, people, did this old playbook of 2 weeks notice. And if we double click out of this, like we're not in a world of lifetime employment and pensions anymore. If you go look at a list of best places to work, you'll find that like the average duration is like 2.5 years. And probably for people under 30, 2 years is like a tenure now or considered a career. And so, despite knowing that people aren't going to stay at our company, we have this dramatic ending like they are, and that it's a marriage that
Yeah.
was expected to last forever, more than it was like a sports contract that was up after a year.
Yeah.
And so analogy. And so I just didn't really understand that and started thinking about like, well, how could we do this differently? Could we change it? And we had a lot of success with that. And I shared it over the years and I did a TED talk about it and I did an HBR article. And without even much of the information, I would hear from people all over the world saying, you know what, I heard you talk about this and I tried it. I just tried the like,
Yeah.
let's have a real conversation with someone. And the outcomes were so much better. And so I really wanted to get the rest of this playbook about open transitions out. But I wrote this book in 2019 and then we had COVID and it just never seemed like a good time. But we were going back and forth between like too much employee power and bad behavior and too much employer power and bad behavior. But that's a whole different discussion because they're all just people.
Yeah.
But in that context, I was like, look, if I don't there's never gonna be a perfect time. Like, so I need to like get this book out. So I went
Mhm.
back and rehauled the whole thing. And, my hope is that for other people too, are like, yeah, this bothers me, or this is not good for our business or the people, but I just don't know another way to do it, that it gives them a playbook to do that.
I love the idea that you approach this book from both the perspective that sometimes people leave because a job is no longer a good fit and it's time for them to move on, but also sometimes this can be and often it's a positive experience, right? You get the opportunity to hire someone in
Yeah.
new who's talented, and this person gets to move on to a new role that's good for them, that opens up opportunity for them, for their family, for the community at large. So, talk to me about what a positive exit really looks like. You've hinted at some examples, but if I'm Laurie Rudiman and I'm like, "Ugh, I just dream of maybe going back to school
Yeah.
or I've got another opportunity in an organization down the block," like, what does it look like in an optimal state?
And this is to what you said, everyone's a genius at something and everyone's good at something, and doing something that you're not good at and you're not
Oh,
enjoying
sucks.
probably isn't great.
Yeah, yeah.
The optimal state is that it's led by the employee, because I always think it's easier for them to lead it. Although we always say ours, you can be employee led or employer led. But if I have those discussions and I give you the safety, you should want to come have the discussion. I'm going to have the discussion when it shows up in your performance, but usually it shows up in the performance because something's going on, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we try to do. But the programs have sort of 7-step part to it from the company, which is like having a written plan. So let's get this all really clear. So Lori, we're going to help you find something new. You're going to be here for 90 days. You're going to work on your accounts like this. You're going to have time. Just let us know when you're interviewing and do all of that stuff. Clear timetable, clear expectations, strong communication. Because if you go get that first round interview and that second round interview, and then you're like, look, I think they're going to make me an offer. Well, then I know we're probably getting close to 2 weeks and I need to speed up the hiring or plan on something like that. I think it's also the company and the leaders opening up their Rolodexes, helping those people with opportunities, using the company resources. There's no reason why the company's own HR person or team can't help the person interview or read the resume or try to do something. And then there's often options for third party support, whether it's training or, we've done some different things. And then the last one's just kind of like make it personal. Like we've heard some interesting stories about someone needed a suit or they needed this, or they needed this sort of training. And it was better to like pay for that resource than to pay them not to work
Yeah,
and do
I
anything
love
at your company. And if people are saying that, well, they're not going to work well, or like, look, once people know that there's an end, people's energy, it always rebounds on a pip, right? Because losing your job is motivating.
right.
Knowing that like it's going to end, like I think a lot of people, they just having that can put them on a good track and energy. And I want to wrap this up well here versus feeling like you never know when this is going to end. That's when it sort of goes the wrong way. So these things have problems. They're not perfect, but I just promise if you try this approach, it's going to be so much better than you think. And the real problems are few and far between. And I like the saying that if you have people leaving your company constantly in a toxic fit of rage, stealing things, you are either doing a horrible job hiring people and screening them out, or something about your culture is making them that way. And both of those things require a little deep introspection.